The heat pressed heavy on the cracked sidewalks of Halston, Texas, the kind of heat that made the air shimmer and the pavement feel like it could blister your skin. It was a Saturday night, just past 9, when Elijah Trenton stepped out of a corner store called Benny's Market, a small neighborhood place with flickering neon and dusty window blinds that hadn't been cleaned in years. Elijah, 34, wore navy blue scrubs, a sure sign of another long day. 12 hours on his feet at St. Catherine's Regional Medical Center, moving between emergency rooms and trauma bays, stitching wounds, easing pain, doing work no one ever cheered for. He wasn't thinking about anything except getting home, kicking off his sneakers, and heating up the ribs he left in the fridge from yesterday. He juggled a plastic bag with Gatorade and chips in one hand, his car keys in the other. His muscles ached, and he welcomed the quiet night. Until it wasn't quiet anymore. The screech of tires carved through the silence like a blade. Car doors slammed. Boots thudded against asphalt. "Drop the bag. Hands where I can see them," a voice barked behind him. Elijah turned, startled, bag still in hand. 2 police officers stormed toward him, one squat and red-faced, the other tall with a wiry frame and a drooping mustache that didn't quite match his young face. Their hands hovered near their weapons. "I just came out the store. What's going on?" Elijah asked, confused, his voice calm, measured. The shorter officer, badge-reading Officer Kyle Breckman, smacked the plastic bag out of his hand like it was trash. Bottles rolled into the street. "You match the description," he barked. "Shut up and turn around." Elijah blinked, heart skipping. "What description? I was just—" He didn't finish. The taller cop, Officer Todd Granger, twisted his arm behind his back and slapped cold steel cuffs on his wrists. People at the gas pump stared. A woman lifted her phone. A teenager froze mid-step. Elijah stood still. "I work at the hospital. I'm a nurse." "Yeah? And I'm Santa Claus," Breckman sneered. Elijah could have fought back. But he didn't. He knew how that story ended. Instead, he stood quietly, face burning, heart thudding like a slow drumbeat. He thought about his mother, who taught him to keep his dignity no matter what. He thought about the military uniform folded in the back of his closet. And he thought, not now, but soon. The ride to the station was silent, except for the laughter from the front seat. No Miranda rights. No explanations. Just the stale smell of the police cruiser and the rattle of handcuffs. At the Halston Police Department, Breckman yanked Elijah out like he weighed nothing. Inside, under flickering fluorescent lights, an older woman behind the front desk looked up from her crossword puzzle. Her eyes shifted between the officers and Elijah. "Booking for shoplifting suspect," Granger said, slapping a clipboard down. The woman didn't argue. She buzzed them through. No paperwork. No phone call. Just a cold cell with concrete walls and a steel bench. Hours passed. No one came. No one spoke. When the door creaked open again, it was Breckman, holding a manila folder. He flipped it open like he was reading off a menu. "Looks like you're not our guy after all." Elijah didn't move. "You fit the description, though," Breckman said with a shrug. "Dark hoodie. Black pants. Male. Black. No apology. No remorse. Just indifference. You're free to go," he said, tossing the folder beside him. Elijah rose slowly. He didn't speak. He didn't look back. But as he stepped into the cool night air, he didn't feel free. He felt shaken, like a soda can on the verge of bursting. But Elijah wasn't the kind to explode. He moved in silence. And that silence was about to roar. He sat at his kitchen table later that night, the only light coming from the hood over the stove. His phone buzzed. Texts. Calls. A video of his arrest had gone viral. He read the comments. Another one. He was just buying Gatorade. Unbelievable. He thought about laughing it off, returning to work, pretending it didn't happen. But then his eyes landed on an old photo above the counter. His father, Colonel Daniel Trenton, in full army dress, stern but proud. A man who taught him, never let anyone strip your dignity. Elijah stood, walked to the closet, and reached behind the coats and scrubs. There it was, his own army uniform. Clean. Pressed. Medals from deployments in Iraq and humanitarian work in Puerto Rico. He wasn't just a nurse. He was a veteran. A protector. By morning, he had a plan. Not to scream. Not to rant online. But to confront them where it mattered. He gathered the video. Eyewitness statements. A formal complaint, grammatically perfect, precise. Then he made a call. His old army buddy, James Cullen, now a legal advisor for active military personnel. They agreed to meet at the station. At 9 a.m. sharp, Elijah parked outside Halston PD. His medals glinted in the sunlight as he stepped from his car in full uniform. Conversation stopped. Officers froze mid-coffee sip. He didn't rush. He walked with purpose. At the front desk, the same clerk from before blinked at him. She buzzed him through. Inside, Officers Breckman and Granger sat sipping coffee, reviewing paperwork. Elijah stopped 10 feet from them. "Good morning," he said firmly. "I'm here to file an official complaint regarding an incident involving your officers." Both men turned. Color drained from their faces. "Elijah Trenton," the clerk called. "The watch commander will see you now." Captain Maria Denning, late 50s, sat behind a desk lined with commendations. Standing beside her was Captain James Cullen, now wearing his Army JAG badge. Elijah laid the packet on the table. Neat. Professional. Complete. Captain Denning flipped through the documents. Cullen added 2 more pages, a formal request for internal investigation and a notice to the Department of Defense. "You understand this is serious," Denning said. "I understand exactly how serious," Elijah replied. Through the glass, Breckman and Granger could see the meeting but not hear it. Their faces sagged with dread. Denning looked up. "We'll begin an immediate review. Both officers will be placed on administrative leave pending investigation." Elijah nodded, picked up his copy, and left. He didn't gloat. He didn't shout. But as he passed the officers in the lobby, their silence said everything. By Monday, Halston was buzzing for all the wrong reasons. Local news picked up the video, then regional, then national. Headline: Army veteran and nurse wrongfully detained. Caught on camera. The mayor released a statement. Internal Affairs launched a full investigation. Harassment complaints once buried surfaced again. Breckman and Granger were now liabilities. Their reputations crumbled. They reported to duty like ghosts. Colleagues avoided them. Then the suspension letters came. Elijah didn't call press conferences. He didn't make demands. He just let the truth speak. Meanwhile, his inbox flooded. Messages from veterans, nurses, strangers. "You stood for us. You reminded me I'm not invisible." One afternoon, an elderly man with a Korean War cap stopped him at a coffee shop. "You didn't just stand for yourself," he said. "You stood for all of us." Elijah smiled faintly. Weeks later, both officers were suspended indefinitely. Civil suits followed, not just from Elijah, but from others finally brave enough to speak. Elijah returned to St. Catherine's Medical. People greeted him differently now, not out of fear, but respect. They saw not just a nurse, but a man who faced injustice and rose above it. This wasn't revenge. This was reminder: dignity isn't granted. It's defended. The headlines faded, as they always do. But in Halston, the impact lingered. Body cams became mandatory. Sensitivity training was overhauled. Small, overdue steps forward. Elijah never claimed credit. He quietly spoke at a local high school's Veterans Day. He talked about calm, about courage, about standing tall without violence. "You don't beg for respect," he told them. "You live in a way that demands it." The students listened. Weeks later, Elijah received 2 letters. One from the mayor's office, an official apology. One from the Department of Defense, thanking him for his service. He framed neither. They stayed in a drawer under his bed. Because the real reward wasn't in ink. It was knowing someone had watched him and decided they would stand taller too. He couldn't fix everything. Racism wasn't new. Abuse of power wasn't new. And change would take more than one man in a uniform. But Elijah knew this. It starts with one choice. One refusal to be broken. One quiet step forward. And that is what makes the difference. Elijah Trenton's story isn't about payback. It's about principle. And the next time the world tries to define you, remember what he proved. Real power comes from knowing exactly who you are and never letting anyone else write that story for you.